I'm going to start recording so I don't forget. Hey, just getting everybody in. Everybody needs to be on camera and I need to see your faces. I'm seeing a couple of ceilings and some walls. So if you could just make sure the camera's on your face, that would be fantastic. Okay, we'll wait a couple more minutes. I'm going to mute myself.
I'm off for a second, Professor. I'm trying to get a phone number out of my phone.
A student just came in and it just says iPhone. I don't know who the student is. So if you could change it to your name, that would be fantastic. Kristen. Hi, Kristen. We were just waiting for a couple more students and we'll get going. So how's everybody doing for a Tuesday? Did you survive Monday?
Yes.
Moving along in week 2. And I'm hoping everybody has their schedules all sorted out, right? You got to all your classes last week, right? Okay. I don't think there'll be any more movement with classes. Hopefully everybody's settled in the sections that work for them. We're still letting a few more people in. And Brianna, if you could come on on camera, that would be fantastic. Okay. I think we have everybody in here. Shante come in yet? And I missed her? Okay. Shante we're missing, and I think that's it. So we'll go ahead and get going. So welcome to week 2. I'm recording. First, whoops. First question is, do you have any questions from last week from the orientation PowerPoint? Anybody have any questions? Everything crystal clear, right?
Not a question, but I
Okay.
couldn't get into the PowerPoints.
Okay, I'm going to mention that. I'll mention that. Thank you. The PowerPoints that I posted in the announcement, I heard from a student last night that she couldn't get into them. But those PowerPoints are in your modules. Does that make sense? So I'm not going to be posting those in the announcements. And when I say in your modules, here's what I mean. Okay, so week 2 or week 1, let's just do week 1. Week 1 reading. Okay, there is your PowerPoint. Okay, week 2 reading for this week. I apologize for that in the announcement. Let's see. Week 2 reading should be your 2 PowerPoints. Right there. Okay, so that's where you'll find your PowerPoints. There's no need for me to post them in the announcements, so I apologize for that confusion. Okay, so today we're going to start off by doing quiz 1. I have it open for everybody. We'll take 15 minutes. Okay, there's 10 questions. We'll take 15 minutes, and then we'll come back and we'll review the quiz and kind of mix it in with our content that we're going to cover. I'm going to review the content, the concepts from week 1. I know I sent you a recording last week, but I do want to review that with your week 1 blueprint notes, and then we'll review week 2 blueprint notes. Are you finding those notes helpful?
Yes.
Yeah, because those notes I've compiled weekly for you, and they are kind of an overview from your readings, your PowerPoints, your Canvas readings, and everybody knows what I mean about Canvas readings, right? Everybody's found those in your modules. Okay. So the weekly notes are a combination of your Canvas reading, your book reading, and your PowerPoints. Okay. Couple of things I'm working on, you should have in the next couple of days. I do have the master schedule for all the reviews coming up to you, hopefully by the end of today. So that is a master list over the whole term. Okay, so it's for exams 1, 2, and 3, and HESI reviews done by all 3 of the instructors. So for each exam in the HESI, you'll have the opportunity to attend 3 live review sessions, okay, and 3 live HESI review sessions, and we share all the recordings. So you'll also have all the recordings for all 3. Okay, so hopefully I get that out today. By the end of the week, you should have your groups in case you want to start working on your group project in week 7. As far as your exam 1 blueprint concept guide, I'm working on that as we speak, and I hope to have that to you no later than Thursday of this week, Friday of this week at the latest. And that's your concept guide to study for exam 1. Okay, so I've got that in the works. I've got the review schedule almost done. I'm going to be I'm hoping IKEA to group. We only have 2 campuses in this particular class, Essington and Port St. Lucie. So it will be easy, a lot easier to schedule you with groups from your own campus. A lot of students have given me feedback that they like to meet with groups. They like to have groups from their own campus because when they're all on campus, they can work together. It doesn't have to be all online. Yes, I pick your groups. So I will do my best to have everybody from the same campus, and you guys can figure it out from there. Okay? Okay. Great. What else? I will I'll be doing my grading today, later on today and tonight for your discussion question 1. From having a quick look at the responses over the last week. Great job. Great job. And then remember your discussion 2 question, the common childhood ailments. Your initial posting is due tomorrow night, right? And then you have till Sunday to do your peer responses. Okay. So that will be due tomorrow night. So don't forget about that. And then that's it for discussion questions. We're done. Right? You only have 2 and you're done with them. Okay. So let's get going to start the quiz. So quiz 1 is open for everybody. It is 107. So let's go till, let's see, 105, let's go till about anywhere between 120 and 125. When you're done, you don't need to let me know. Okay. I can see everybody has to upload it after they're finished. Don't turn your cameras off. Okay. This is a key graded assessment, so it has to be proctored. Even when you're finished, keep your cameras on. If you need to go take a break or go to the restroom or get a drink, that's fine. But don't turn your cameras off. Okay.
So,
Everybody should have quiz 1. Everybody, if you could mute yourself, that would be fantastic. And then we'll regroup in about 15, 17 minutes and we'll review quiz 1. How's that sound?
okay, Professor,
Yes.
after we get finished our quiz, I want to switch over from my phone to my laptop. So, that would be the only reason
That's
why
fine.
I'll switch over. Is that okay?
No problem. And thanks for letting me know that, Joy. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right. All right. Go ahead and get this quiz started. I'm going to mute myself. We'll see you in a little bit. Take your time. How's everybody coming? Anybody still working on it? I have a lot of people who haven't submitted yet.
Is it 15 minutes?
Almost. Got a couple more minutes. How's that?
Yeah. Well, we got 5 more minutes. Yeah.
Okay, I've got about 5 people that haven't submitted yet. So are there 5 people still working on the quiz? Who's still working on the quiz?
Me, I got one more.
Okay. Who else is still working on the quiz? Everybody else hit submit, please. Let me see who I don't have as submitting yet. Janae? I don't have Isabel Pressy. I don't have submitting. Shantae's not here. And Rashima said she's on her last question. So I need the rest of you guys to, those 2 students to submit, please. Rashima, let me know when you're done. Isabel, did you submit?
My last one.
Oh, you're still working. Oh, sorry. Let me know when you guys are done.
Done.
Thanks. Rashima, you done? How'd you do? mean, if you read the 2 weeks of notes and had a look at the readings, then you should have done just fine. All the questions pertain to weeks 1 and week 2 concepts. Okay, Rashima. Janae, can you submit, please? Janae, can you hear me?
She's not here.
Where'd she go? She still hasn't submitted. Okay, we need to get going. What about Rashima? Are you done?
Yes, mine just submitted right now. Hold on.
Okay.
All right, I submitted it.
Okay. Okay. All right, let's go through the quiz. Okay. So let's start with the first one. First of all, can somebody explain to me, based on your readings and preparing, what's the difference between community-oriented and community-based nursing? It's right in your week 1 notes. What's the difference?
Oriented is based on a whole group and focused on promotion. And then base is focused on individuals.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. That's a great start. Anybody want to add what Isabel said? Add on to what Isabel said. So the other word for community-oriented nursing is public health nursing. Okay, it's the big picture. Okay, you're looking at populations. What can we do for populations? I always remember it by I'm orienting myself to the whole community. Community-oriented nursing, focused on health promotion, health maintenance. Okay, we're community-based. I remember it as you're based in the community. You're taking care of clients. So community-based could be a school nurse. Remember, public health is the big umbrella. Community nursing is a subset of public health. Okay, so if you're community-based, that means you're based in the community. So you could be a school nurse, you could be a hospice nurse, an occupational health nurse, a immunization nurse. Okay, you're a home health nurse. You're based in the community working with clients for illness care. Okay, or there is health promotion, but it's considered based in the community working with different clients. So what would be the right answer based on that, what's the right answer here to question 1?
Educating a child and school teacher on how to use an inhaler,
And why is that community-based?
because you're educating them on how to use something properly and trying to prevent them from, like, if you teach somebody how to use an inhaler properly, they won't have to go to the hospital
Mm-hmm.
or like, because they
Yep.
can't breathe or the airway.
Yep, that's part of it, Kimberly. Good job. But remember, this answer B, you're working with an individual in the community. So this is a school nurse. This is probably a school nurse working in the schools with a teacher and a student on the use of an inhaler. That's community-based. All the other answers are community-oriented, looking at the big picture. So developing a teen pregnancy prevention program, that's community-focused. evaluating the outcomes of a community vaccination program. That's big picture, looking at the population. Providing diabetes education to people who are going home prior to discharge. Okay, so those are all big picture. Those other three answers are all examples of community-oriented nursing. Okay, anybody have any questions about that? Question 2. Now, part of week 1's assignment was to go into Healthy People 2030 website. Okay, and just kind of peruse, explore. And so if you did that, which describes the purpose of the Healthy People 2030 campaign. What do they want to do? What is it?
Improve the health of all Americans.
Correct. Remember, Healthy People 2030 is a national campaign. Okay, it's not just for the state of Colorado or the state of Florida or the state of Pennsylvania. It's a campaign, a national campaign to try and improve the health of all Americans. Okay, and did anybody take a look at their site? It's really impressive. Okay, it's broken down into lots of different goals and objectives, and they spell out how they're going to reach their goals or try to reach their goals. So it's a framework for everybody. Okay, it has nothing to do with nursing curriculum standards. It has nothing to do with changing the focus of community health to individual health. Okay, and it doesn't primarily focus on treating the most common chronic diseases. Did anybody get that wrong? Did anybody have a different answer for A other than A? And give me some feedback about that Healthy People 2030. For those of you that went in and looked at it and looked around, what did you think? Did anybody look at it? Okay. Nobody wants to answer. Alrighty, let's move on to question 3. Which is true regarding uninsured and underinsured individuals? What's the right answer?
Is it C?
It is C, and Isabel is the only one participating. I don't like to call on students, but if I have to, I will. Okay.
Is it A?
So Isabel, thank you. The answer is C. Can somebody explain why the correct answer is C?
Because the vulnerable populations are underinsured and they don't get to take care of their health the way they're supposed to.
That's exactly right, Charisse. Good job. So if you're uninsured or underinsured, there's a lot of risks associated with that. There's risks associated with access. There's risks associated with receiving quality health care. There's limits to where you can go. So what happens is when we finally see these clients, they're usually diagnosed at a more advanced stage because, as Charisse said, their focus is not on primary care, right? And the other 3 answers are exactly the opposite. They are less likely to attend preventative wellness visits. They're more likely to develop preventable illnesses because they don't seek care, right? And they're more likely, D, they're more likely to need government health resources. Everybody understand that? Question 4. Who's vulnerable here? Select all that apply.
B?
C and the HIV.
B, C, D, and
So the correct answers are B, C, and D. Right?
I had to think
Did
hard on
anybody,
it.
did anybody select A? Nobody?
I did.
Okay. Why is A wrong?
Because she's 26, so she's not like vulnerable.
Exactly. If that was a teenage year, right? We consider teen pregnancy vulnerable, not necessarily a 26-year-old woman. Not all pregnancies are considered high risk, okay, or vulnerable, but teen pregnancies are. So 26 is wrong, and then D, that is not considered a vulnerable population. Okay, but the veteran, the substance abuser, and the client with HIV are considered vulnerable populations, and that was right in your notes. Okay, so let's talk about resiliency. What is resiliency? What's resiliency? You guys are all pretty resilient right now.
Like they're resilient, like they build immunity type of deal.
Like recover quickly?
Keep going. Resiliency. It's the will to move on, the will to survive, the will to push through. That's why I say you all are resilient right now as you're pushing through this accelerated nursing program with lots of classes this term. You are resilient. Okay? One of the problems that we face with the vulnerable populations in the communities is there's not a lot of resiliency going on. Okay, we as community nurses need to work with our clients to build resiliency, right? To give them the motivation to move on, to get better, to stop using substances, get them away from a homeless situation. Okay, so which statement reflects the term resiliency as it relates to vulnerability?
Resiliency reduces our vulnerability to certain risks.
Exactly. The more resilient you can be, the less vulnerable you're going to be to certain risks. Okay, so resiliency is an important part of our kind of our nursing foundation. We have to be resilient, and we also have to teach our clients how to be resilient. The other answers are the opposite. Resiliency decreases the likelihood that somebody's going to get sick. Resiliency does not depend solely on genetic predisposition. That's part of it. And then D is incorrect. Resiliency cannot be learned if a client does not possess it. Of course it can be learned. Of course it can be. Okay, so resiliency is an important part of our teaching, our education with our community clients. Okay, what kind of question is number 6?
Priority.
Priority question. It's asking, which kid do we want to take care of first? So when you think priority, what are we thinking here in this particular question? ABCs, right? All these kids need to be seen, no question. But the question is asking who needs to be cared for first. What's the correct answer?
B.
Which one?
B.
B is in boy. Why?
Airway.
Okay, you should know this from Med-Surg, right? What is it?
ABCs.
What is complaining of a cough and unable to participate in physical exercise? What are those symptoms of?
Could be asthma.
An impending asthma attack, right? So this little 9-year-old needs to get seen first, right? Because we're talking potential airway issues, potential asthma attack. All right, so this is a priority question. Who are we going to do first? Okay, like I said, all the other ones need to get cared for, but they have to go after the one complaining of that has a cough and unable to participate. Did anybody get this question wrong? Or what else? Did anybody select anything else?
I
I
did,
def-
but I only had the boy with the cough and I changed my answer.
Yeah, me too. I did that too.
Okay, so tell me again why you changed your answer.
Well, I changed my answer because I was thinking rash, maybe like a, like like they were gonna go into anaphylactic shock or something. So that's why
I
I
changed.
selected rash.
Well,
Okay.
that's what.
Okay, so let me ask a question. Here's the beginning mantra of my test taking strategies. Did it say in the first in A that it was a potential anaphylactic? Did it say that? Or were you just thinking it might be?
No, but it also didn't say asthma attack in B.
But in all fairness, though, you should have to recognize those symptoms are of an impending asthma attack. Okay, it's clearly airway. So my teaching point here, and this goes for everybody for all exams. If the information is not in the question, it does not exist. And this is for all you overthinkers that like to add all your 2 cents in when you're trying to answer a question, but that information's really not there. Okay, so consistency with answering the questions means that you only use the information in the question. Okay? There's no what ifs. Well, what happened last night? Well, what if? If it's not in the question, it doesn't exist. And hopefully that cuts down on changing your answers, which is my second teaching tool. Do not change your answers unless you can completely convince yourself that the first answer you chose was wrong. Like maybe you marked it by accident when you were clicking on something. Okay? To change your answer with, well, I think I remember saying that. I think I remember she said that in class. I think I remember reading that. Oh, I think no. Those are not good enough reasons to change your answer. Okay, so be careful changing answers. Okay? You need to convince yourself 1,000% that simply the answer you chose was wrong. Okay? Question 7. Okay, iron deficiency anemia was in your week 2 concept notes under common childhood ailments. So which food should the nurse recommend for a child with iron deficiency anemia?
Eggs,
Why eggs?
because it provides protein.
Okay. Did anybody else pick something different? Come on, you guys, you're too quiet. I don't want to listen to myself talk the whole time. Okay, this should come from MedSurg. Again, we talked last week, this is a very MedSurg focused course. And your week 2 showed it in your notes, all those common childhood ailments. Okay, the school nurse notes dark discoloration along the neck crease and the armpits of a child. Well, before we answer this, what are a dark discoloration, marks, and neck creases? What are those?
Could be a sign of diabetes.
Correct. Does everybody know that, or are you just all being quiet? Everybody knows that, right? So, what's the answer to the question?
It should be B, I guess.
Advise parents to obtain a full medical evaluation.
I didn't pick that.
Okay, so these are signs of potential diabetes in a kid. Common sign. Okay, so it has to be evaluated. Okay, we wouldn't do A, right? We wouldn't be reminding the child to be putting cream in the area and recommend an iron-rich diet. Well, we don't even know what's wrong yet, so we can't really do that, right? So this is a sign of, and this was in your notes as well, under diabetes. Okay. Question 9. What kind of question is this?
Priority.
Question.
It's a priority question. Which nursing intervention is a priority for a child experiencing developmental delay? Before we answer that, about this question. This is a good example of a question that might have, when you read the answers, it might, maybe there's another answer that could be right too. Maybe there's a couple answers that. What?
I read right over the part and just did the intervention. I didn't even see priority. Which
Okay,
sucks.
so Kristen admits that she didn't read the question accurately. So Kristen, I'm going to use you for an example now. So Kristen reads it and she doesn't see the word priority, and she starts looking at the answers and she says, oh God, this isn't a select all that apply. There's only one right answer, but a couple look like they could be correct. What should I do? Go back and read the question and see what word or phrase or cue that you missed. Because Kristen missed the word priority. Okay? So think about it. Forget the word priorities even in this question. A could be right. C could be right. D could be right. Right? So, but it's only letting you give one answer. Oops, I might have missed an important word in the question. Well, you did. You missed the word priority. And since this week where you had a Canvas reading about lead exposure, what is lead exposure? What can lead exposure potentially cause?
Developmental delay.
Developmental delay. Okay. C and D may need to be done down the road, right? But it's asking what is the priority. All right. So there's a really good example of a question that if you see more than one correct answer and it's not a select all that apply, go back and reread the question. You missed something. Kristen, does that help?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. All right, number 10. Okay, the nurse notes the child's BMI is in the 90th percentile. Which intervention is appropriate?
I put encourage parents to reduce overall screen time.
Yep, that is the correct answer. Did anybody select anything else? Great. Yeah, so what we're looking at here is a potentially obese child, right? For right now, they're in the 90th percentile. Okay, so we don't need to do a refer for an urgent medical evaluation. Hopefully they are working on that. The parents are working on that with a physician, right? But maybe get this kid moving. Get this kid up and about. Get some exercise, right? Right. All right, let's review our week. Well, first of all, does anybody have any questions about the quiz?
Professor, I'm going
Yep.
to join on my laptop now. Is that okay?
Yeah. Okay, so in week one, we covered, hopefully you noticed that in both your week's notes, that I've really tried to organize it for you. Okay, I have copy and pasted the concepts right at the top so you can follow along, and then I've copy and pasted the readings. Okay, there, I've copy and pasted this right from the syllabus. Okay, once we get through the concepts and the readings, then I review each concept. All right, and it should follow all along in sync with the concepts identified. So we talked about community-based and community-oriented and community-based nursing. Does anybody have any questions about that? Okay, as I mentioned earlier, public health is a specialty area of community-oriented nursing. Okay, so public health's the big kahuna, and then you have all these different aspects of public health. One is community nursing. Okay? Yeah.
It's like 4 people from my class that's in a waiting room. Their computers was messing up.
My computer's messing up?
No, theirs was. It kicked them out, so they've been trying to get back on for a
Oh,
while.
shoot. There they all are. Okay. Thanks. Huh. I didn't get any pop-ups for a waiting room, so thanks. Oh, I think when I start sharing my screen, they don't pop up. Let me stop sharing for a minute and get all these guys back in. Did I kick all you guys out? I don't think I did.
Well, hello, everyone.
Hi.
Yeah,
Hi again.
been trying to get in here.
Well, what I don't know why you guys got dropped off. No idea.
Yeah.
Once I share my screen, I don't get pop-ups for the waiting room.
Oh.
So I've been sharing my screen, doing the quiz, so I don't get pop-ups. One of the students just told me that a whole ton of you were in the waiting room, and you were. So welcome back.
Thank you.
Huh? So I don't know how much you guys missed. So how much did you guys miss? I mean, we
All
were
right,
going
so
through.
we missed right after the quiz. Well, I did. Right after the quiz, we missed everything. The quiz review, I missed.
You missed going through all the quiz reviews?
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
What happened? Did something happen with your internets?
It's okay.
Yes,
I guess we'll go. Well, what I did, I went to get on a switch,
Oh,
and
yeah. Okay. So here's my suggestion. I'll send the recording to this. So what are we at? We probably started at 1:30 to 1:50.
Mm-hmm.
So
okay.
my suggestion would be when you get the recording, at some point, go back and review between 1:30 and 1:50. That was the review of the questions.
Yes, okay.
Does that help?
Sure.
That would be my suggestion if you want to review the quiz.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Thank you.
I have
You're
a question.
welcome.
Will we be deducted for that time?
No.
Yeah, I was worried about that because I know they do.
Unless you were all just messing around for 20 minutes.
No, we've been trying to get in for 20
You
minutes.
were. No, yeah, when I share my screen, it doesn't pop up. So I don't know who alerted me, but thanks. Well, welcome back. So we're gonna just review blueprint notes from week 1 and week 2 to make sure you have a good understanding of the concepts. Okay. All right. So we talked about community-based and community-oriented nursing, right? Community-oriented nursing is focusing on the promotion of illness, promotion of health rather than illness to a whole group of people, the whole population, rather than individuals. Okay, community-based nursing is in the community. Okay, we talked about this, home health care, hospice, schools, occupational health. It's illness care instead of health promotion, health maintenance. It's individuals as opposed to communities and populations. Okay, the one thing we need to have a good understanding of, and I know you guys have already had an introduction to this, is levels of prevention. Has anybody not heard of primary, secondary, and tertiary at this point? I know you have. So what we need to do is to be able to identify for each concept we cover, a primary intervention, a secondary intervention, and tertiary. Some of the feedback I got from my students in week 12, a couple of weeks ago, they said that there were numerous questions on HESI about primary, secondary, and tertiary. Okay. And so because we cover so many concepts in this class, the basic premise for each of these is the same. Primary is prevention, secondary is screening, tertiary is treatment or management. That's how I remember them. P for P, S for S, T for T. Okay? So we have to be able to come up with levels of preventions for each of the concepts we're covering. For example, an assessment, let's see, a primary intervention for a group of preschoolers, teaching them how to wash their hands to prevent illness, is going to look different than a primary prevention for somebody who has mental health or substance abuse issues. Does that make sense? It's all about prevention, but we have to look at each concept differently. Okay, so primary is prevention. The one thing I want you guys to understand on the front end is a lot of students put education just into the primary level. And I don't want you to do that, because education is done at all three of these levels. All right. Education at the primary level is done to prevent. Education at the secondary level, remember, secondary is early identification, early intervention. So it's screening, right? So screening for mammograms, pap smears, screening for obesity, screening for potential substance abuse, family history. Okay. So let's say we have identified by our screening a high-risk group. Let's say a high-risk group of high schoolers, high-risk group to become obese. There's education involved in that, right? We need to teach them what the long-term ramifications are of obesity, potential health problems. So that involves education. And then at the tertiary level, we're also educating. Remember, tertiary, they have to have something. They have to have a condition, a disease, a diagnosis, or maybe they've had an injury, or a kid fell off a bike and has a TBI. They already have something that's happened to them, right? So now we're trying to help them manage that, treat that. So there's education involved there too, right? So take a diabetic. They already have diabetes. We're still doing education. At least I'll speak for myself in my school nurse role. Let's say I'm working with a group of kids that have diabetes in an elementary school. I'm always working with them to educate them to make sure they understand how to test their blood sugar, how to give themselves a dose of insulin through their pump. Okay, so my point is education is at every level. Don't get caught up in education just being at the primary level. Okay? Healthy People 2030, we talked about that in the first question of the quiz, right? It's nationally driven objectives to improve the health and well-being over the next decade. We started with Healthy People 2000, then we've had Healthy People 2010, we've had Healthy People 2020, and we've just in the last year and a half moved into Healthy People 2030. Okay, so here's their overall 5 overarching goals. So have a look at that. You do get Healthy People 2030 questions on the exams. Okay, there are a couple of them. Right, so please make sure you review this part of the Healthy People 2030 section. Social determinants of health. Very important with doing community assessments. Okay, assessing people, how families function in the community. In the community, your client can be one of 3. Your client could be an individual. Your client could be a family unit. Your client could be a subset of the population, say the homeless. There's 4 of them actually. Or your client could be the whole community. Does that make sense? Where in the hospital setting, you have your patient. There could be all different kinds of scenarios for the community nurse. One thing is for sure, though, there are 5 domains that we look at for social determinants of health. What's a social determinant of health? Okay, where are we born? Where do we live? Where do we go to school? Where do we work? Where do we do our recreation? Where do we worship? Okay, all those kinds of things affect our health, affect our functioning, affect our quality of life, affect our outcomes. Okay, so the standard 5 domains that we look at for social determinants of health, meaning where are you at in your current situation? Economic stability, access to quality education, access to quality health care, your environment, your neighborhood, and then what does your neighborhood have? Okay, so for example, does your neighborhood have safe housing? Does it have transportation? What are the neighborhoods like? Is there violence? Is there gang activity? Is there high rates of crime? Are there racism, discrimination issues? Are there diverse cultures that live in your communities? Do your communities have access to nutritious foods? Are there parks? Are there walking trails? Okay. Do you live in a community that has polluted air and water? Language and literacy skills. Big issue in communities. With a lot of immigrants coming in that don't speak the language, it's very challenging. Okay, low literacy is a really, really big challenge in vulnerable communities. Okay, so those are social determinants of health. That's how we look at them. They contribute to disparities, they contribute to inequities. Maybe people who don't have access to grocery stores with healthy foods are less likely to get good nutrition, right? In turn, that raises their risk of heart disease, diabetes, obesity, maybe lowers life expectancy. Okay. This was an introduction last week to Introduction to Vulnerable Populations. He had a question about that in the quiz. Okay, vulnerable populations, just think about your own community. Think about driving around your own community. What kinds of vulnerable populations do you see? Homeless, clients affected with mental health issues, substance abuse. Kids are considered vulnerable, elderly is considered vulnerable, pregnant teens are considered vulnerable, veterans. Lots of vulnerable populations, right? So, children, why are children vulnerable? You can read through that. Elderly is vulnerable. Okay, other groups, the chronically ill. One of our biggest healthcare costs in the United States is complex chronic illnesses. Biggest group of healthcare, utilizing healthcare resources. All right. Non-speaking American non-English speakers, another vulnerable population. Okay. What else do I want to mention in here? Here's resilience. Here's where we talk about resilience came up in the quiz. Okay, resilience, the ability to the ability to resist succumbing to health risks. Right? What is resiliency? Where does it come from? Can someone learn it? Discuss childhood, mental health, feelings of being in control or feeling without control. Resiliency is influenced by life experiences, especially in the early part of your life. Negative events in childhood that aren't dealt with through counseling or approaches decrease resiliency. You know, if you think, I think of the families that live in poverty, and it's just cycle after cycle after cycle of poverty. The resilience is low. The motivation to get out of poverty is pretty low.
But I'm sorry, I just had something to say.
Yeah.
Don't some of those people make it out though?
Oh, yeah. With their resiliency, right?
Yeah.
But a lot of times, families or communities are caught up in cycles of poverty, right? Where, oh, this is just the way it is, and this is the way it always has been. But the more you can work with these communities to provide them opportunities, help them learn resilience, to move up and move out, right?
Yeah, I just think it's different from American poverty to like other countries in poverty. Like
Absolutely.
it's a difference because my father, he's an Indian and he grew up, dirt poor and used to sleep on the ground, but his health is better than mine. And he's smarter than me by far, and he has a fourth grade education. So, and he made it good for himself. But like I was talking to our friend earlier, is a certain percentage that does make it out.
Absolutely. And how do they make it out?
Being
Hard
strong,
work,
being resilient.
being resilient, hard work, taking advantage of opportunities, taking advantage of resources, right? That's what we want. That's part of our role as a community nurse. We want to move people forward, right? There's a lot of very compromised and very challenging situations in the community. Community nursing is hard. Community nursing is hard. I can speak for myself. When I was in the school for 21 years, I just retired a couple of years ago. School nursing is hard. Okay, school nursing is not what it was 20 years ago. There's a lot of things that go on in the schools that are truly heartbreaking. School nursing was hard. My first 10 years were kind of what I thought school nursing would be, but the last 10 years was very challenging to deal with all the different things going on in the school building. So, and think of that as your community. Think of all that goes on in your community where you live. There's a lot of people in need, a lot of people in poverty, right? Just talked about poverty a little bit. Poverty and low educational levels contribute to social conditions in which disparities occur. The poor often live in unsafe areas, work in stressful environments, maybe have less access to foods, education, healthcare. They're more likely to be uninsured or underinsured. Okay. This is important. Poverty, this is just a general statement. Poverty is the primary cause of vulnerability. And it's growing in the United States. Think about an individual, a family, a subset of the population, homeless, or the whole community that lives in poverty. Poverty affects everything. Poverty affects finances, affects jobs, affects social, emotional, psychological. Poverty affects everything. Chronic stress, homelessness. Okay. We know that education plays a role. And remember, I don't mean to sound so down, but this section we're talking about is introduction to vulnerability. Okay. So we know education plays a role. Higher levels of education lead to better choices. Education also influences the perceptions of stressors and the effects of stress. Higher education increases self-confidence and thus resiliency. Okay. This section I'd like for you to have a read if you already is the interventions of vulnerable populations. Nursing interventions should include strategies to increase resources, reduce health risks, and reduce health disparities. That's what community nursing is all about, right? Knowing your resources, having resources for the individuals or families. We're working towards reducing health risks and health disparities. It would be wonderful if community nurses could primarily focus on primary intervention and secondary intervention, prevention and screening. It'd be wonderful. But unfortunately, so much of our resources are tied up in tertiary interventions where people already have things going on, and we're helping to treat and manage those, helping the clients treat and manage those. Does that make sense? I'd like to finish up our introduction to vulnerability with what I've highlighted here. Vulnerable people, vulnerable populations are something that we're going to be exposed to and working with throughout all of our nursing career. It doesn't matter where you work, whether you work in a hospital, whether you work in a medical office building, whether you work in a clinic, a prison, a school. Vulnerability is everywhere. Okay, so as nurses, we must show respect, compassion, and concern. We have to try our best to be non-judgmental. We can't make assumptions, right? Let people tell their stories. Ask open-ended questions. You can't make assumptions. Okay. One of the biggest, or one of the initial things we need to think about as we meet with each client, whether it's in a home or in a medical office building, is establishing trust. There's a lot of vulnerable people and populations that don't want to talk about their vulnerabilities. Whether it's due to education level, they don't understand, whether it's due to a language barrier, right? They just, if you can establish that trust at the beginning, and we talk more about the trusting being a priority when working with the LGBT community. We'll get to that, I think, next week. So anyway, compassion. Well, that's what we are as nurses, right? We're compassionate, we're kind, we're concerning, or we have concern, we're helpful, we're full of resources. I mean, does everybody come to you guys with medical questions? They do to me. Nurses are seen on top of a pedestal. Okay. So know when to walk beside a client, when to encourage the client to walk ahead. Okay. And then it can be hard. It can be really hard working with vulnerable populations, like say you're working with the homeless day in and day out. We have to think about ourselves too, developing our own support network. Caring for vulnerable populations can be very draining. So we have to take care of ourselves. Okay, so that's your introduction to vulnerability. Jumping ahead to this week, school nurses. I've already told you a little bit about my experience as a school nurse. School nursing has changed dramatically over the years. Some of the roles at a school nurse, direct caregiver. So by the time I was leaving my job 2 years ago, I was suctioning trachs. I was cathing female, male students, administering emergency seizure medications, EpiPens, trach care, suctioning. We had lots of nonverbal and immobile students. Okay, so school is very inclusive these days. Okay, students with severe complex issues are in schools. Okay, and so we have to find a way to accommodate and take care of them. And that's school nursing is much different than it was. Diabetes care, working with kids with insulin pumps and insulin shots. I mean, anything goes. IV antibiotics through PICC lines. Anything goes. Whatever the child needs, and assuming it's within the scope of our practice, we provide that in the school setting. I can at least say that for our district. Okay, everybody has different rules in their different states. School nurse is also a health educator. A lot of my role was in education. Okay, I could start out one day teaching preschool kids how to wash their hands, and by the end of the day, I was in a high school talking about substance abuse. Okay, so health education just depends on the population you're working with, right? Whether it's growth and development, puberty, substance abuse, hygiene, obesity prevention. We also are a consultant. Okay, I did a lot of training with the teachers, the administrative staff on how to care for emergencies in their school. So we consulted with all different groups in the schools. Then a case manager. Case manager, we'll talk, that comes down the road in this class, but case manager is basically you are the coordinator of care. So for example, if I had a very complex kid, the kid would probably be on an IEP, individualized education plan. And depending on what services he or she needed, PT, OT, speech, extra tutoring, whatever, that nurse coordinates all that with the school staff. So that's what a case manager does. In children with complex chronic illnesses, the school nurse may coordinate the care among other providers. Okay. And then outreach, lots of outreach in with the school nurse, participating in health fairs or festivals, coordinating, putting together a health fair, organizing vaccination clinics in the schools, having speakers come in to talk about, law enforcement come in and talk about drunk driving and seatbelt safety. So there's a lot. Anybody that has kids in schools, you guys know there's a lot that goes on in schools, right? I want you to have a look at, this is the first real concept that we can really tie a primary, secondary, tertiary to. Okay, this is the school nurse. The other concepts we've been covering, they're concepts, but not specific enough to have the primary, secondary, tertiary. But school nursing is. So please read this section. Okay, remember, primary is prevention. Secondary is screening. And tertiary is treating and managing a condition. Okay? Anybody have any questions about that? Family nursing, family health risks. What's a family? What's a definition? What's the current definition of a family? Anybody? Is there a definition of,
Just breaking out.
Pardon me?
I think you went pause for a while. I
Oh.
didn't hear you.
Oh, so family. What is the definition of a family? It really is whatever they say it is, right? A family requires a family is defined in this current day as the people who provide physical, emotional, and financial support. Right? Non-traditional families are now the norm, are they not? One of the things we talk about when we talk about family risks is what's the difference between a functioning family and a non-functioning family? Okay, they're kind of like the social determinants of health with the 5 domains. Here's the 5 functions of a family. These are just standard functions. Every family looks different, but here's the main 5 functions of every single family, whether they're positive or negative, and that determines functional versus non-functional. So financial, are families planning for the future? Are they making good financial decisions, providing housing, finances? The other function is health. Are we teaching in the family? Are healthy behaviors being taught? Health maintenance, providing informal caregiving. What does the health look like? Reproductive, as far as having kids. Are there, what's the functional family doing as far as family planning? What's the dysfunctional family doing as far as not planning? Socialization, right? The functioning family is hopefully raising their kids to fit into society, to become productive, responsible, well-adjusted adults, maybe passing on spiritual, religious, cultural beliefs. And then the affective function is this family creating a sense of identity and belonging through affection, love, time together, bonding activities. Okay, so those are your 5 functions. Failure to meet these functions leads to dysfunction, right? Leads to dysfunction, crises. A strong contributing factor to the future, to the family, is whether is there substance abuse going on, is there anxiety, is there depression, is there unemployment, is there unsafe sexual practices? Okay, family should always be our most important safety net and social support system, kind of your primary coping mechanism. Without it, the tendency towards bad behavior or maladaptive coping mechanisms increases. Okay. Family health risks. There's 3 of them. Okay. Genetics, environment, and behavior. Okay. Genetics, we're all born with certain predispositions, right? Maybe you have a history of substance abuse, history of alcoholism, history of heart disease, cancer. Okay, we're all born with certain predispositions that we may not have a lot of control over, right? So we're doing family histories and family assessments, it's important to identify genetic risks. Then the environment. What does your physical environment look like? What is your social environment, your political environment? Do you live in a high crime neighborhood? Is there a lot of pollution? How are living conditions? Is it a high stress environment? Is there discrimination going on based on race, social status, religion, immigration status, or ethnicity? Right? Lack of adequate financial resources. We talked about that. Poverty, social resources, emotional resources all lead to higher risk and will all lead to crisis, potential crisis. Then you have your behavioral, right? Your risks. Behavioral is the choices that you make, right? Do you choose to eat a lot of food that you become obese? Okay, that will cause chronic conditions or already has chronic conditions. Do you abuse drugs? Do you drink alcohol? These are all your personal choices, behavioral choices that you make that contributes to your risk. Okay. So those are 3 different factors that play into family risks. And then there's a section on obesity that you can read through. The last section is common childhood ailments. Okay, this should be all from your med surg. There's several of them in here. I've given you what I think are the most important bullets to remember about each one. There's going to be a question on exam 1 about each of these. So know these. Okay, but these, and this is what your discussion question is this week as well, anyway. So these are the most common childhood ailments that we identify: asthma, eczema, diabetes, conjunctivitis, scabies, pediculosis is lice, ADHD, iron deficiency anemia, scoliosis, and lead exposure. Okay, so have a look at those all as well. So that's our week 1 and week 2 content. Helpful information?
Yes.
Does anybody have any questions?
Can I retake my quiz?
No.
No.
Can
Okay,
we, don't we
Who's
all wanna
wait, who
retake
said
our
that?
quiz?
Charisse? Okay, so who said that? Charisse? Who wants to retake their quiz?
Kristen.
Kristen. So Kristen, let me ask a question. I'll put you on the spot. Did you prepare for class?
No. No, but then I changed all of my answers, which I know better.
Okay. You and I
know
need to set up a tutoring session. You and I need to talk
Okay.
about test taking strategies.
Yeah.
Oh, I'd like to be in that.
I said me too.
Yeah, me too.
Welcome to
So
my
it's like-
review.
It's like 5 or 6 of us that would like to be in that.
Well, yeah, I'll get really mad at you guys
Why?
for changing answers.
Bad habit.
That drives me insane. So I have a couple of good tutorials from Elsevier test taking strategies. I'll share with you
Do
guys.
you think that maybe we can go over like the slides before we take our like how we just had this whole thing?
I know.
Yeah.
But quizzes have to be taken at the beginning of class. I know. I'm telling you guys, if you read the weekly notes.
Because it's a week, I know, but if it's something that we don't understand or nothing, it just makes it clear. I mean, you would make it clear by going over the subject and the material, make it more clear for us on something that is not clear.
Okay, so here's my answer to that. If you're getting prepared for class and you don't understand something, reach out to me and we'll jump on Zoom and we'll talk about it before class even happens. I'm available to you guys all the time. Before class, before exams, after exams. So if you're reading through your notes and don't have any clue what's going on with this particular concept, just shoot me an email and ask me, can you jump on Zoom? Can you help me understand this? Okay? What you guys got coming up for week 3 for next week? Oh, it's your first NCLEX. Right? And then we have a quiz. That's what's happening next week. Well, actually, next week are the review sessions for exam 1, right? Because exam 1's in week 4. So you got your NCLEX, you have a quiz, and then the quiz will cover week 3 material. So when I send you your announcement, well, you already know what you need to read and stuff. Don't wait for my announcement. But just review the readings, review my notes. It'll be fine. Okay? You guys are going to be fine. Just stay on top of things. Okay?
So, quiz 3 is only on week 3.
Mm-hmm.
And then, for exam 1, it's weeks 1, 2,
1, 2, and 3.
and 3. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And then the week for going forward on the weeks you take exams 4, 7, and 10, we'll cover that content for that week the following week. So like in week 5, we'll cover 4 and 5, just like today we cover 1 and 2. Okay,
From
so we
prior
got-
classes, did you hear a lot of good reviews about attending the reviews for prior to the
Oh, I've said that there is a direct correlation from attending live reviews to doing better on the exam. Direct. So that's why I want to send this out early so you can prioritize for the whole term.
Okay.
Okay. All right, guys. Really good to see everybody. Happy week 2. I hope you have a good rest of the week. And then reach out to me if you need anything, and I mean it. Anything. Anything, please. I'm here for you guys. Here to support you however I can. Okay?
Thank you.
Thank
All
you.
right.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye.
You're welcome.